Okay, people are joining. Fine. So in the last class, we created image for faculty image. And we tested it. We have something called layers and build cache, right? Volumes. Okay, I'll explain this later, okay? This concept I'll take later. Probably. I'll take that here somewhere. Not very important one. Fine. Okay, so you all know how custom images, custom image names look like. So custom images or user images usually will have the username and then your image name. And official images don't have username prefixed. Remember that, because Ubuntu is same for whole world, right? So official images won't be having usernames. And if you want to pull a particular version of image, how do you pull? Ubuntu 16.04, Ubuntu 20.44, and then so on. So we call this as image name, and this as tag. What do you call this? Version or tag. Usually we call it a version or you call it as a tag. If you want to delete the image, docker RMI. Okay, remove image. If you want to remove all the images, docker RMI. Say this. Docker images. Docker ps-a. I'm first deleting all containers. Docker ps. Docker rm. Okay, let's see. See this. If you want to remove a single image, how do you remove? Docker RMI. And then say Nagesh weekend / Ubuntu -image. This colon latest is optional. If you don't give anything here, by default, it means it's colon latest. Okay. Docker RMI image. That's how you remove the image. Now we see this. Conflict. Unable to remove a repository reference. Unable to remove this particular image because a container is using it. So this one, 55F8, 55F8 is using this image. So if an image is being used by some container, if an image is in use by some container, you cannot remove the image by default, but with -f option, you can remove. Forcibly, you can remove -f. Now the image is removed. Okay. So if you want to remove multiple images, Docker images, for example, if you want to remove multiple images, use the same trick. Docker images and then -q. Sorry, Docker images -q. What -q will give? -q will give you all image IDs. For example, let's say Docker pull Nagesh weekend / -image. See, if you want, you can just pull the image. See, if you create the container, at the time of creating the container, anyway, image is pulled, right? So if you want to pull only the image, you can do that using Docker pull command. Docker images. I have 2 images here, right? Okay. Say, for example, I want to remove all images at once. You can use this Docker images -q. And how do you remove the image? RMI, correct? So we know this trick, right? So just run this command. This command will give all image IDs, and those image IDs using those image IDs, docker rmi command will remove everything one by one. Again, there is a error because the image is used by some container. So let me remove the container first. Docker psfd, docker rm, faculty server 1. Now you can remove all the images. Docker images don't have any images. That's how you remove all images. That's a simple one, right? Okay. Let's see how there is something called data persistency. There is something called volumes. It's a new topic. Let's discuss it. So for example, you have your host and you have some containers, okay? Those containers are running on some clusters, for example, or some containers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Likewise, you have 10 containers. Container 1, container 10. These containers are all under some load balancer. There is a load balancer here. There is a load balancer. So all these containers are running on some cluster or some host, whatever. This is your RAM, CPU, hard disk, operating system, and this is your Docker. Fine. You understand this? Assume that this is your production environment or your test environment. You know this diagram, right? Development teams store the code in Git, build the code. We deploy this waterfall into multiple servers, right? Say container 1 to container 10. 10 containers you have. Under all these containers, you have the load balancer. Same thing I'm showing here. Load balancer. Under load balancer, you have 10 containers. This one. So for example, there is a user. User is accessing the application, saying, say www.flipkart.com, something like that. So request comes to the load balancer. So here you have your Flipkart application deployed in all the containers. You have 10 servers. So assume that this particular user is directed to container 1, this one. Okay. When user logs in Flipkart, application has to remember that user has logged in, correct? So sometimes, what happens? Applications write some data in some folder, say for example, saying, okay, maybe some file, and it will say, Harry has logged in. So application writes some data. That means in this particular container, application has some data. Application generates some data that stores user's status, right? Whether user has logged in or not, and things like that. For example, this user adds 10 items to the cart. It will show that it'll have to remember, right? Saying, okay, there are 10 items in the cart. So to remember these kind of things, plug in our session information or cart and things like that. So applications generate some data, and then applications store some data. Assume that you have some data here. What if this container is crashed for some reason? What load balancer will do? Load balancer will divert that particular user request to some other container now, because this container is crashed. Now, when user comes here, we don't have the data, right? See, before that, two things. First thing, application generated some data, right, in this particular directory. Container crashed. If container crashed, then data is also lost, correct? So first question comes, how do you preserve that data? That's the first question. How do you preserve this data? Even though container gets crashed, you should have the data. First thing. Second thing, data should be available in all other containers, all other servers. Means this container is crashed. User is redirected to this particular container now, this particular server. The server doesn't have user's session information, right? That is whether user has logged in or not, and how many items the users added in the cart and things like that. Correct? There is no, information. So since there is no data here, it will again ask user to log in. User thinks, I just logged in, I added some items to the cart. Why are you again asking me to log in? You cannot give such a bad experience. So ideally what we have to do, when application generates some data, we should have the data available in all other servers. So even though user request will go to other servers or application know your existing behavior, and then servers act, process your request accordingly, right? So two things. First thing, if container gets crashed, how do you save the data? And how do you make the data available across all servers? So how do you do it? How do you fix these two issues? Make sense, right? That's where we think about something called volumes. With volumes, you can fix these two issues. See this. I'll create a volume here in my host. This is my volume. Think volume as a directory. Volume is nothing but a directory. So on your host or in our cluster or wherever, you have to create a volume. Okay. And then we attach this volume to the container. We attach the volume to the container. That means this is a directory. This directory is attached to another directory in the container. And then application writes data in this particular directory. It's a bidirectional, meaning if application is writing something here, some files, the data will be automatically synced to host machine's volume. If you add something, that will automatically go here. It's a bidirectional. So you have to create the volume, attach the volume to the container. So what happens? Even though container goes, if assume that container goes down, if container goes down, you still have the data here. First problem is solved. Second problem. So you create the volume and then you attach this volume to all other containers. Attach the volume to all other containers. Now what happens, tell me? So you have the volume, okay? You created the volume. You attach the same volume to all your containers. Assume that first server writes something here. If it writes something, that data automatically will come here, correct? And this volume is attached to all other containers, right? So what will happen? Same data will be available here. Assume that container 10, server 10 is writing something. That will come here. And since this is attached to all other containers, same will go to all this. It's a bidirectional, right? If you have something, it will reflect anywhere, everywhere, right? If there is a modification, that will get into the volume. So that's how you can make sure that data is common, right? Commonly distributed across all the servers. So you are solving this problem using something called volume. Clear with this concept? Any questions you have so far?
So the volume will act as a like NAS, network attached storage.
Network attached storage.
Like in cloud, if we'll say like AWS EFS.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same file will be like can be used to many other instances.
Yeah, something like that. We know in Linux we have this what's it? Not we don't call it the what mount
Yeah,
concept.
that is what like on premise server we used as a like NAS uh,
I'm unable to hear you, Ashish, properly. Can others hear Ashish?
uh, for volume also. Yeah, I can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I think there's a problem my side only. Can you repeat it, Ashish?
Something like for VMs, there will be a like NAS, network attached storage. So that will be mounted to every VMs. Like same data we can get if we'll log into any of the VMs. So
It-
something like that.
yes, Ashish, it's the same thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'll do now, let me go on and create a volume. Okay, so our job is just to create a volume. Our job is what? Creating the volume is our job. So we don't know whether the volume is required or not and things like that. If somebody, development teams or if developer comes to us and say, okay, my application is writing the data here, right? So create a volume. I need a volume. So then only we create the volume. So volume creation is our job. So whether the volume is required or not, that requirements, that input comes from the development teams. If you want to list all the volumes, remember Docker volume is common, okay? Docker volume, ls, list all the volumes. There is one volume here, let me remove it. Docker volume rm, that's a command here. That's a command using which you can remove the volume. Docker volume ls. You'll understand more about that rm later. We don't have any volumes. I'm going to create a volume. Very simple. Docker volume create. Docker volume ls, Docker volume create, Docker volume remove, and so on. Docker volume is common. Docker volume create, and then volume name. I'll call it as user data. That's a volume. User data. Okay. Docker volume ls. There is a volume called user data. Think volume as a directory. Correct. Okay. Now it's a directory, right? So volume contains data, correct? Volume contains data. So where is this directory? Where is it created? Here in the local? No. Okay. So if you want to know where this volume is created, use this command. Docker volume ls, Docker volume create, Docker volume inspect. Inspect and then volume name. So inspect will give more information about this volume. So this is where the volume is created. Mount point. Simple, right? If you create a volume, right? Docker by default, when you create a volume, Docker by default creates that volume at this location. You know this path already, right? Docker, sorry, var lib Docker. This is Docker's backend directory, var lib Docker. This is where Docker stores container information, image information, and so on. So let's go here. Docker volume list. Okay. This is where Docker creates the volume /var lib Docker ls. Images are stored here. Container information is stored here. Volumes are stored here. It's always the standard path, okay? CD, volumes. Then you see volume name. How many volumes we have? Docker volume ls. We created one volume, right? So this is the path, okay? User data. And then by default, there will be one directory here called underscore data. So this is your volume path. So where is this volume created? Remember, var lib docker. You know this. It's a Docker backend directory. Then volumes will be under volumes. Volumes, volume name. You may be having multiple volumes. What is that volume name? What is what volume we created? User data. And here there will be one extra directory by default directory. Okay, Docker creates it. So this is where it stores the information. Var lib docker volumes volume name underscore data. Okay. So currently our volume has nothing. Okay. Shall we attach the volume to the container now? You know how to create a volume now, right? You know how to create a volume. Let's attach this volume to a container. You have to attach this to the container, right? And then we'll write something here that should come here. That should automatically get synced to the volume. So how do you attach a volume to the container? Docker volume ls list. We have a volume. And how do you know the volume location? Docker volume inspect and then user data. This is where volume is created. Oh, Docker volume ls. I'm attaching this water volume to a container. Or people say mounting volume to a container. Attaching or mounting a volume to a container. How do you mount a volume to the container? Docker run -it. See, remember, we can mount a volume to the container only at the time of creating it. Only at the time of creating a container, we can mount a volume. You cannot mount a volume to existing containers. Remember that. Docker run -it -name. Okay, I'll call it as say Flipkart or say Tomcat server one, whatever. And then Ubuntu, for example, /bin//. That's how we create the container, right? So if you want to attach a volume, just say -v. Simple. V for volume. And then volume name. What is that volume we want to attach? User data. That's a volume name, right? Where you want to attach in the container? We are getting a container, right? So where you want to attach that container? Sorry, where you want to attach volume in a container? Volume is nothing but a folder, right? We have a folder in the host, right? And we have to attach this particular folder to another folder which is in container, correct? Where? I'll attach here. This is container path, okay? User data. So if you go to the container, you will see this directory there. So that means our volume is attached to user data directory, which is in the container. So if you have something in the volume, you see the same thing here. If container is writing something in this directory, same thing comes in our host volume. Now, it's creating container. There is no image, so it is downloading it. Done. See this? User data. CD user data. This is where application will write the data. That means our volume is mounted to this particular directory. So this one, user data, right? This is user data. So if application writes something here, same thing comes in our, whatever application writes in that user data directory, same thing comes in our volume. Shall we test it? It's a bidirectional, right? Let's test it. Assume that this is my server, okay? Server is writing something here. For example, touch user dot, say, user.info, something like that, ls. There is some file here. Assume that application is has created the file and then it is here. Same thing should come in our volume, right? See this. Go to the volume now. This is where we have the volume. This is my volume, right? Varlib docker volumes, volume name, underscore data. ls. See? File is there. Now assume that I am writing something here in my volume. Okay. So user info Harry logged in, something like that. Some data you have. Now you have something in your volume. Same thing comes here. Harry logged. So it's a bidirectional. You modify something in the volume, same thing appears in the container. If container modifies something in the directory, same thing comes in the host volume. So that's how first problem is solved. Now, even though this container gets crashed, you still have your data here. First thing. Second thing, if this container gets crashed, when user goes to, when load balancer gives that user request to some other server, so whatever data you have here, same thing should be present, right? Same data should be here, correct? So how do you do that? So whenever we get the containers, for example, you have 10 servers. So attach this volume to all 10 servers. Now shall we attach same, volume to another container? So when you attach the same volume to the another container, what will happen? That container also gets the same information, right? Say run -id -name tomcat server 2, okay, ubuntu/bin/bash, and then I say -v volume name user data. This is my host volume name, and in the container it will be mounted at this point, user data. Remember, our volume has some existing existing data. Go to /user data. See, you have file. Now assume that this is my volume docker volumes. First container, second container. Assume that first container is writing something. Say it is getting some file, okay? Cart data. First container is writing something. So that will come here and that will go to all other containers also, because this volume is mounted to all other containers. See here. It has come to volume. Same thing you can see in another container. Same thing you can see in all containers. So even though, right, any container is writing, any server is writing something, right, the data will be first synced to the volume, and then same thing will be synced to all other containers. So even though this server goes down, you still have data available, synced or data available with all other servers. We call this as data persistency. How do you persist your data if container is crashed? How do you make sure that data is accessible, or data is distributed across all other servers? Using volumes concept, we can do it. So if you need this, then bring volume. Otherwise, we don't need volume. And whether we need it or not, that requirement comes from the development teams. So Docker volume ls, list all the volumes, create volume, Docker volume, create volume name. Inspect will give you more information where that particular volume is created. And if you want to mount a volume to a particular container, Docker -IT, V is the one, -V, your volume name, container path. Clear with this? Any questions here so far?
Sir, yeah, then will the data from one cluster will copy to another clusters also?
One cluster to another cluster? No. Volume can be mounted only within a cluster.
No, the data of that volume, there will be multiple clusters, no? Or there will be single cluster.
There will be only one cluster, right? For one application, we will be having one cluster only.
And sir, in this command slash user data underscore user data column user data, first user data is the volume name, and second one, is it the mount name, or yeah, or it will also create a volume on the container also?
It's not a volume, it's just a mount point. So this is our volume, okay? This is mount path. We say mount path.
It will mount as
Mount
a
path means it will create a directory there automatically in the container at a given path. It's a for container, it's a directory. It can write anything there. It's not again a volume.
it will be a virtual directory.
Yeah, correct. You can think it as virtual directory. Usually we call it as mount path.
But the data will go to the cluster directly.
Data will go to?
To the cluster directly.
No, we don't. What do you mean by cluster here? So data will go to that mount point.
Mount point.
This directly. Mount point. You can call it the mount point. Mount path. Mount point. Okay.
So can we use the same command for attaching this volume to a running container?
No.
I mean, like the existing container? No, right?
We cannot attach the volume for existing containers. No. If at all you have to attach something to the existing container, then we have to destroy the container and then create a new one. And that's in Docker world, that's people say it's a pretty common, and then that's totally fine. People don't have any issue because, say for example, you have got a new requirement, you have created a new volume. Okay. Say for example, you have one volume, you have another volume. For some reason, you want to create another volume. You want to attach this volume also to all other containers. You can have any number of volumes in your host. You can attach any number of volumes to the container. For example, tomorrow, so first volume is mounted to all containers. Now you create a second volume you want to mount. What do you do? You cannot mount the volume to the existing containers, right? So what do you do? So you have to delete the one and then create a new container, mount two. Again, delete one more, create a new one, mount both. -V, you just need to repeat this. -V 2 times. -V this one, again -V, another mount. So you cannot mount the volume to the existing container. Now you may be worried about this. Okay, my application is running here, users are connected. No, I don't want to delete it. That's totally fine. You still have, all 10 servers are doing the same job, right? It is just that you don't have one. You still have 9, right? Correct. In that case, what do? So you just destroy one. That's totally fine. Create a new one. And you are able to do it within less than a second. So when you are able to do it within less than a second, that's a mentality of users in Docker, right? Instead of fixing something, I'll destroy the thing and then create a new one freshly. And that's totally fine because it happens within less than a second. That's what we do.
Okay, sir. To attach multiple volumes, then we have to add the option multiple times in that
Yes.
command, right? -V.
Yeah.
Full
We
name.
have to repeat this
Okay.
multiple times. Okay. And you can
Okay,
also You can also
Sir,
attach your
volume also, the mount point also.
come
Hello?
again? Yes, sir. I can hear you, Biswajit.
Yeah, sir, actually for multiple volume, for that also, yes, sir. So for multiple volume, we need also mount point also different path, or same path only can attach.
Each volume will be mounted at one point. So user data to user data. For example, there's another volume I have. This is say cart data. Cart data to another directory here. Cart data. So different for each and every volume, you have a different directory in your container. This is your cart data. Okay.
Okay.
Mount point and name should be same as the volume name, or it can also be different.
Can be anything. Can be anything. So this is your volume name, right? So this is just a directory in the container, right? This can be any name. Okay, you can give any name for this. It need not be. It need not match with your volume name. Okay.
Sir, I
So,
do
only,
have.
so just wanted to know how to write that model thing. At least two things how to write.
How to write what?
The command hide that one.
I mean, mounting multiple volumes.
Yes.
You can just do this. I'll just give you. Just repeat it. That's all. So this is for one volume, right? Hyphen V user data. Again, one more volume. Hyphen V cart data. Colon cart data. Slash. This you can create this directory anywhere. Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise.
Okay, sir. Got it.
So
Sir, like we are actually doing this volume attachment all to get rid of losing data, user data and all, right?
yes.
So as you said before, like we will be destroying the existing containers in, let's say, like if it is in production also, we should be destroying the containers, and like we have to create it again with a attachment command kind of to, like to attach a new volume to that container. So in that case, like will there be any data losage or something like that? So as you said before, like we are actually running the same task all over the containers. Like there are like 4 or 5 containers also. We are running all the task in those 4 containers, the same task. But at the same time, I'm having a confusion like whether these the same task will be having different kind of user request. For example, like when we are having some kind of record generation, like a monthly record, like some kind of generation. So probably we'll be running a single script for that task, but the data will be different in each of the containers.
See,
So in that case,
Vishnu, sorry to cut you. It's when the question is very long, very difficult for me to remember. See this. Let me answer your first part. So I am creating a new volume. Okay. Now I cannot attach this volume to all existing containers. So what I do, I remove it. Correct, Vishnu? I remove it. So you have removed it. In the sense what? How do you how you remove the container? So before you remove the container, you will stop your application. Correct? You stop your server. When you stop your server, nothing is getting written here, right? You make sure that application is not running. You stop the mission, then destroy the container.
so sir, like what happens to the tasks which are already running on those? It will exit out, right?
You have to wait.
Without.
You have to wait. So that's a developer's call. Okay, when you stop the server, what will happen? So okay. There is another option here. If you really want to do that. So you want to replace this container, right? So take this particular server out of the load balancer. Right, Vishnu?
Yeah.
If we take this
Yeah.
out of the load balancer, what will happen? This is not getting the traffic. Traffic is not scheduled to this. Okay. So you bring that server out of the traffic, out of the load balancer, deattach it, and then first, you stop the server. Wait if traffic is still coming or not. Wait till traffic adjusts. So once current things are done, right, remove it from the load balancer, and then destroy it, and then create a new one with 2 volumes. So we do that in a rolling fashion, right? We take 2, we destroy 2, then create 2 new one. Again, batch wise we do. Again, we destroy 2 and then bring another 2 one, and so on. So we repeat like that. So until we get all new containers. And believe me, you don't have to worry too much about this, because we won't be running applications only in containers. These containers will be in Kubernetes. Kubernetes will do all this job for us very easily without we worrying much. So there's something called rolling update of fashion in Kubernetes. Kubernetes can handle all these things very easily for us. Just Kubernetes, tell Kubernetes, I want new container with this. It knows how to destroy, how to bring it back and things like that. But if there is no Kubernetes, if you have only Docker, you have to do this. Make sense, Satish?
Yes, sir.
Any follow-up question you have on that? Because you are still...
No. The second follow-up question was already cleared once you explained this.
Okay. Okay, see this. Now, you can also mount a volume read-only. So this is the volume, say, for example. I want to mount it as a read-only. Read-only means you have some data here. Container can just see the data. Container cannot modify data because it's a read-only. For example, you have 1 GB data. You have 1 GB data. You want to have this 1 GB data available in all servers. For example, you have the JDK, installation, you have Tomcat installation, you have blah, 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 and so on, right? You have some installation, some data, you have 1 GB data, right? So you want to make this data available in all the containers, but you don't want containers to modify it. In that case, you can mount a volume as read-only also. Okay. You can also mount a volume as a read-only. 1 second, my son wants to pass a message. Okay, I'll take it. Give me 5 minutes. Sorry. What was I explaining? So you have some data here. Okay. So you want to just make this data available across all containers. So you can, in that case, you can mount a volume as read-only. Very simple. Just add RO, that's all. So for example, Docker volume ls. I have another volume separate. Docker volume create, Docker volume ls, Docker volume create, Docker volume inspect, right? Docker volume rm for remove. Create, we call it as cod data, or say installation. That's a volume name, right? So where is this volume created? Docker inspect installations here, right? See, varlib Docker volumes, volume name, underscore data. So that's where it is. Now, assume that I want to mount it as a read only. Okay. So Docker run -it hyphen name, for example, Tomcat server 2, right? And -v installations 2 somewhere here in the container. I want to have that under a directory, for example, /a/installations. You can give any path, okay? Usually we give under installations, under slash. And then Ubuntu /bin/bash is optional. Server name 2 is already given 3. See, go to 3. installations. It's a new one. Okay, so there is no data in this volume. Shall we add some data here? Docker volumes, right? Volume name, right? Installations. There will be an extra directory called underscore data. That's the default one. Nothing is there in this particular volume. Okay, let's add something. For example, I'll add some Tomcat installation. Okay, download Tomcat. -xvf extract Apache Tomcat rm-rf Apache Tomcat.gz. So here I have Apache Tomcat in this volume. I want this installation available in 100 servers. One way, you can go to each and every server and then you can install Tomcat. Instead of installing, in 100 machines, what you can do, just place in one place, right, in one volume, and then attach the volume. So 1 GB data, say for example. So this 1 GB data, instead of copying from this machine and things like that, right, you can just make the data available in all 100 machines, right? See, let's go to our container, ls Apache Tomcat. You have got Apache Tomcat. You can use this as an installation now. Here, you're not installed it here. So you just install this particular, keep all the installations here in one directory, and then attach it to 100 containers. So everything comes in 100 containers. You don't need to install that again and again. And you can use this as a Tomcat installation as a separate copy, as if it is physically present. You can use it. And it's a read only, correct? It's a read only. See, I'm trying to modify something here. Touch hello.txt. Just writing something. It is inside that. No. Here. This is read only, right? No. 1 second. So I want to mount it as read only, correct? 4. See, if you want to mount a volume as read only, you have to add this. It was not read only before. RO. Simple. RO. Read only. So if it's read only, what happens? Your wish. If you want to make it read only, that's okay. If you don't want read only, just remove that RO. Now go here, installations. I go and modify something. Touch hello.txt. So it says read only file system. You can just consume this, data. Touch hello.txt. You cannot modify the file, you cannot create the file, you cannot modify anything. It is just there for read only. So you can, by default, it is bidirectional, right? In these kind of use cases, you can also, if you want to share the data, instead of copying it again and again, or instead of configuring something again and again, just put it one place, attach that, and you see that data in all the containers, and then you can use this particular thing as if the Tomcat or JDK installation is physically present there. So think that it's separate copy. So you know how to attach the volume as read only.
Sir, one question. So while attaching, okay, so let's take, we have 10 softwares are there, and I want to do attach those with the 10 volumes, okay? And individually I can customize, or for all those 10 volumes, the same data will be attached.
No, you have to repeat that -v for all 10. This we have to repeat. This is for one. For another one, again -v, volume name, and then colon path.
No, that I understood, but my question is that here, let's take, I have 10 softwares are there, but I want for only volume 1, I need only one software, and volume 2, I need another 2 software. Like that, customize is possible.
You can do anything. Any data you can put. For example, JDK, installation you have in one volume, Tomcat installation in another volume. But this is little, tedious, right? That means you have to attach multiple volumes. So instead, you can do that if you want. Instead, if it is installation purpose, then better you have,
everything in one.
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay.
Or separate, it can be separately done.
So since all the containers are using the same volume, does it will affect the performance?
No, I have never seen any such performance. See, again, depends on your hardware, right? Hardware has this feature, right? Input, output, speed, data, IO speed. So it depends on that. So as long as you have good hardware, it should not be a problem. So just because multiple containers, multiple servers are using the same directory, there is no performance, impact there.
Okay.
Okay. How many volumes we have? Docker volume ls. Okay. How do you remove a volume? How do you remove a volume? Simple. Docker volume rm. Docker volume rm user data. So what it is? Remove user data. Volume is in use. It says this particular volume is in use by two containers, 1, 2. So if a volume is in use by some containers, you cannot remove the volume. No. Even there is no force option. If you want to remove a volume, you have to find all containers, remove them, then only you can remove a volume. This triggers another question now, right? Anyway, it is giving you the container IDs, which are which are all using this particular volume. But I mean, this ID, and then if you have like 10, 20 containers, then it's not very easy to kind of remove or identify those containers, right? So how do you list all containers which are using a particular volume? Correct. See, you want to remove a volume. If you want to before you remove a volume, you have to remove a container. So how do you list all the containers using a particular volume? Question, right? So that's where we use this filter option. Okay. Docker ES-A list all. Give me all volumes. But in that, I want you to filter containers which are using this volume called user data. Simple. 2 volumes. So if I want to remove this particular volume, what do? I first remove these 2 containers. Docker rm Tomcat server 1, Tomcat server 2. These 2 containers are running, okay? So I'll use force option. Now I can remove the volume. Docker volume rm user data. Done. Fine. So that's how you remove a volume. Docker volume rm, and then if you want to list all containers, then it's --- filter volume is equal to volume name. That's about volume concept. Any questions about volumes? In another one class, most probably we can complete Docker. Let's see how it goes. Any questions for me today?
From my side, like balancer. So do the setup for like DevOps team do the like setup for load balancer?
Yes. If it 2 things, Ashish here. Assume that you are not in cloud. You are on premise. If it is on premise, setting up um, load balancer is very difficult. It is like your replacement of networking, network engineer, right? Say code in Git, we take the code, build it, and then this is the load balancer, correct? If these servers are on premise, assume that your these are VMs, and then these VMs are in your own network, not in cloud, say for example, on premise. Setting up load balancer is not an easy job. Very, very, very difficult it is. So in this case, I prefer to involve network engineering team. If DevOps engineer do this job, again, this is kind of a replacement for network engineering. So we don't want to take it because I don't want to become network engineer. But assume that these servers are in cloud. Usually DevOps engineer only do the load balancer, because in cloud everything is automatic, right? So if it is a cloud, you can give it to network engineering also, but just to avoid the delay, better DevOps engineer can take it. So for example, you have these containers in the Kubernetes, K8s, Kubernetes. Setting up load balancer in Kubernetes is very easy. So I take it up. But if it is on premise, I don't want to take it because it may take several days for me to configure it or understand it and things like that. Even if I configure in on premise, I may not be efficiently configure load balancer like a professional network engineer. So in that case, we give it to them.
Like say,
Depends on
like
the
on
understanding.
premise, it will be from like firewall.
Yeah, a lot of things. So usually, networking things are considered as very complex things, right? So firewall, I don't know, if something goes on, if something you don't configure properly, then you have to face security issues, a lot of things. So that's the reason we don't take usually on premise.
Is there any like free application load balancer which are used by companies for a setup or anything like that?
There are many. Kubernetes is one, but in general for VMs, Citrix is the paid one, is it?
Citrix, I think free. It is free.
Load balancer.
I think Cloudflare is used for application load balancer.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to the application load balancer. Let's be specific. Open source load balancer. I don't think Citrix is free. Let's see. Take it from there. So what is load balancer and how does it work? 1 second. So load balancer methods. Traffic. Nginx also can act as a load balancer sometime. Nginx is a name that should be instantly recognizable to anyone involved in web application engineering. This tool offers load balancing capabilities over here. So apart from Nginx, in Nginx, if you install these packages, that can also act as a load balancer. A well-established, widely supported option. It offers highly scalable performance out of the box and can extend with additional modules like Lua. So if you install some extra modules, Nginx can become as a load balancer, and that's very popular. HA proxy, Neutrino is there. Citrix NetScaler load balancer with free master class. They may be having maybe the basic or minimal one as free, Ashish, but looks like this is not completely free. You can check it out.
On premise it is difficult, but on cloud we like it can be done from like DevOps side.
Yes. In fact, we'll be setting up the load balancer in Kubernetes. I'll explain that.
In our
Okay, good.
in our case, Kubernetes will do the job for us.
Come again, okay?
In our case, Kubernetes will do the job for us.
Yes, Kubernetes has the inbuilt load balancer. You can use it, or we can ask Kubernetes very easily to go to a cloud provision or create a load balancer and then get it done for us. It has
Okay.
two options. We'll be configuring load balancers in 2-3 different ways in Kubernetes. I'll explain that. It's end-to-end. We discussed about the Git, then we know how to build the application using Maven. Now we are containerizing the application. Then we go to the Kubernetes and then make our Gamut Cut application live so that anybody in the world can access it with proper load balancer. So that's how we execute the project, right? As and when we learn some concept or bring some new tools, we apply that on our Gamut Cut and then we fine tune the automation. By end of the course, you will see top-notch DevOps automation. You'll be able to configure all those things for our Gamut Cut. Okay, that's all I have from my side. If you don't have any other questions, we can wind off. Any questions? Okay, thank
Sir,
you.
can I call you after this call?
Just call me after 5 minutes, Vishnu. Okay.
Oh, okay, sure, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good night.